place to promote the growth of Tigres in English through analysis, discussions, interviews, and more. Welcome to the La U Times podcast.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the La U Times podcast. Stoked for tonight's episode. This episode tonight is proudly sponsored by Universal Signs of Humble. We'll get into that a little bit later, but first I'm going to introduce my friends for the pod tonight. We'll start off with Alfred here in the H-Town. Look at his takes. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. Looks like we finally got our prayers heard by the Bob and we're losing tunes. I'm very excited to talk about this.
Absolutely. Dennis, producer in the house, music master. How we doing tonight?
Hello. This is my last podcast being 24 years old. I do have a birthday tomorrow, apparently. Unofficially tonight, we're sponsored by Olipop, who makes these like healthier sodas. They have a lot of fiber in them apparently, and this watermelon lime flavor is fantastic. Go get them at Target.
Love that we have a official sponsor and unofficial sponsor.
Olipop, sponsor us, please.
And lastly, the legend Double O Nation himself. How we doing, brother?
Doing great. Pleasure to be with you guys as always, and listeners as well. Thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, tonight's episode is brought to you by Universal Signs of Humble. Our guy, Vicente Hernandez, the owner, hooked it up with a bunch of stickers that I'm going to figure out a way to hand those out to hopefully people here in Houston soon, as well as most likely mail them out to our English community. And they're great. I'm going to leave that as a little surprise for later. But, pretty stoked about Vicente. I met him up this Sunday, and, he was nice enough to, give these to me. And, he wanted to make sure that we got them out there to people. They're really cool. And I'm pretty sure he saw us complaining a lot about the stickers that we didn't get during Tigres week. So ultimately, he stepped up to the plate and got us these amazing stickers, big and small. And he does a bunch of work. So Universal Signs of Humble, I'll be posting his information after the episode to make sure that if you guys have anything that you guys would like to get done from vehicle lettering, channel letters, neon sign repair, front store vinyl letters, perforator vinyl, interior signage, pylon silent light repair, and much, much more. So with everything that was prepared for tonight, I'm going to toss it over to our boy Double O Nation to give us the breakdown of tonight's episode.
All right, so we're going to get started with Tigres. Los Incomparables resumed Liga MX activity after pausing for the League's Cup. Saturday night, Bonovic led Tigres against his former club, Chivas, in a match that was underwhelming at times, but concluded in a 1-1 draw. The first half was filled with quite a few missed opportunities and lack of intensity for both sides. The second half saw a rapid goal from Chivas' Piojo Alvarado in the 47th minute after a mistake from Jesus Angulo left him wide open for that shot. Not much time after, André Pierre missed a penalty for Tigres that would have made the draw and potentially led the team to victory. The 56th minute saw Gignac and Angulo redeem themselves as Angulo provided an assist for Gignac to score a golazo in his classic fashion.
Thanks a lot. We'll start with overall impressions, fellas. Tigres takes leading off tonight. What were your overall impressions of the match?
Well, I think the breakdown was, pretty much nailed it. It was a very, very slow first half. And I mean slow because, just simply, we weren't able to, build our game. I believe that, I know we're going to get into the lineup a little bit later, but I believe that Paunovic made a mistake giving us that double 9-up again as a starting. And, unfortunately, we didn't capitalize on a lot of the opportunities that we had. Another big mistake, again, from Angulo, unfortunately, got Chivas ahead of us when, in all honesty, I mean, we probably should have won this game. So a little bit disappointed, but very, very happy for my man Gignac. I know some people, as soon as he, missed that penalty kick, they wanted to go all out, all guns and blazes against them, and that's not the type of thing you do for someone like Iñak.
Yeah, you and Tigres English, our boy Lou had a back and forth here and there in our message threads as well as on public Twitter. But yeah, he was definitely getting crucified immediately, and probably couldn't have come at a worse time because everything that's been going on with the the back and forth of the selection of the nine, especially with the double nine being selection, like you mentioned that night. Double O Nation, the lineup, another coach, another lineup with the double nine. When will they learn this isn't the way? What do you feel about the double nine being played? And then we'll get into the actual lineup once we get over to Dennis.
So I know Paunovic's style is a bit different than what we saw with Tivoli, what we saw with Chima, what we saw with Diego Coca, but ultimately I think if as a good coach you have to know your roster and you have to know your players. You have to know that Andre Pierre is not accustomed to that, regardless of the fact that Ibanez has been here for quite some time now. I think that it was ineffective and irresponsible to just go out like that against Chivas. I think if you wanted to experiment in Leagues Cup, that's one thing. But back in the league play where these games are more critical, where it's extremely important to, get the 3 points every single time, especially at home, I think it was a mistake. And I really genuinely hope he understands it and that he learned from it this time, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's many coaches like you've talked about, and it's to me it's very stressful because you put these guys in a tough position, and I'm not one to side with one or the other. I think both are really good forwards. Obviously, one has a more accomplished career at our club and has given us quite a lot. Nico Ibanez has not been bad, but he obviously is not Andre Pierre, and we know that. We've seen it with the type of play that he contributes to our team. He's obviously a proven forward in the league, but ultimately for me, it's just it just hurts the team's overall success when you're having to play both and having to really choose one or the other. I think both can be utilized in a way that can be complement each other, whether they're together for a certain aspect of the game, depending on the situation. Maybe you're down, you're needing some goals. Obviously, you push forward as much as you can. But when you're building up, especially for 45 minutes, when the build that wasn't happening in the first half, I think it was an immediate action that needed to be taken by Pauno that he did not do. So, Dennis, lineup thoughts. We'll give you the rundown. Obviously, in goal, we had Nahuel, we had Aquino.
Tapia.
Perdón, se me fue la mente. I'm so sorry. Tapia. It's probably because I think he's got same height, same presence out there. But my mistake. Fernando Tapia, Aquino as a right back. Interesting move right here, which I'm going to make sure I get into this movement here. Joaquim as a right center back, Guido Pizarro as a left center back, which hadn't occurred. And then you have Angulo as the left back, Nando Gorriarán, Rafael Carioca, Córdoba, André Pierre, Nico Ibanez, and who am I missing?
No, it's Ociel. Yep.
Ociel Herrera. So one traditional winger, but Córdoba is being played as a winger as a recent, and two double nines. Dennis, break down the lineup, thoughts, impressions. What was Paunovic trying to do and accomplish here?
More experimentation that isn't necessary anymore. Like that's what Leagues Cup kind of was for, even though it also kind of wasn't supposed to happen during Leagues Cup. You could get away with it more during Leagues Cup. Like you guys mentioned, you can't get away with it now. And it's a disservice to Cordova and Ociel too, to some degree, but the Cordova to have to play in a double nine system because that doesn't suit his abilities well. Like he had a tough game, and part of that I think is on him, but also part of it's just because he doesn't thrive in that system. When he thrives with our team, it has been in the 4-2-3-1 that we've played for Lord knows how long at this point. And so just sticking him out in a 4-4-2 on the right wing, like you're not getting the best out of him, and sacrificing that system to find a way to put Ibanez in, who Ibanez did not have a good last game that we saw him play in New York. and in a system that should only be used in the last 20 minutes of a game is honestly really frustrating. And it was really frustrating when I saw that when it first came out. So I wasn't surprised, because when you don't have real wingers out there, you're setting yourself up for frustration. Like not having a Marcelo out there, not having a Lainez out there instead of Cordova, you kind of were asking for it. Everything else, totally fine with. Midfield, you expected Joaquin to get the start, especially since we didn't know if Reyes was going to be in the squad, much less even play the last 20 minutes of the game. I'm shocked by that. And then obviously we knew Tapia was going to get the start. And by the way, before we talk more about the game, I just want to say, spectacular game from him yet again. Like, him and Nahuel have been very good about like keeping us in games, in the games that they've played. Look what happened in the one game before this one that we drew in the league when Felipe was still around. If Tapia is there instead, I think we end up getting 3 points at Atlas, because Felipe just messed up on one of those goals, like real bad, because he's just not that athletic and he doesn't have, the height that you really need. So Tapia, I would imagine, would have saved that. And he's just proving his worth, like time and time again, in the very short amount of time that we've seen him in our jersey. He's done really well and makes me feel so much better about our future. So I just want to shout him up before we get any further. But again, not surprised. Like, the system was not going to be successful the way it was set up.
Couple of things that you mentioned there. You talk about wingers and how we didn't really have wing play there. That's my big problem at the moment with the selection that we have going on. Ultimately, obviously now under Paunovic, so let's analyze what Paunovic has done. You brought in, from the board perspective, Marcelo Flores, Osiel Herrera, Diego Lainez, and then obviously prior to Luis Quiñones deciding that he wanted to leave, you have 4 quality wingers who can start on any given team in the Liga MX, and you start one true winger, and then you improvise by turning a central attacking mid into a winger. What is the deal with that? What outcome are we looking for there when you're trying to play with 2 9s and feed them, balls into the box? I was super, and that's why to me it stresses me out that we're looking to play a double 9 and then ultimately choose one winger, one traditional winger to play and feed on potential crosses to a guy like Andre Pierre and Nico Ibanez. On top of that, you add in the fact that Andre Pierre has to play a more of a serviceable role in this case to Nico Ibanez by playing further out of the box, where ultimately, as a fan base, we are crying that these are his last years, his last times in a Tigres jersey, and we're having to increase this man's work rate when we should be, if anything, being more clinical near the box by setting this man up with less running, right? And then on top of that, you add the fact that Paunovic is looking to press high and press all over the place. So everything's just all over the place. The ideas are not conducive to what we are looking to do as a team and implement with a new coaching staff, from a board perspective, with the players that we brought in over the last year and a half. So to me, all that is alarming because it just riles up inconsistency and no sense of true direction from the top board decisions, as well as what's being played on the field with the coaching staff. Alfred, go ahead, Dennis. My bad.
I was just gonna say, to that end, like, you're saying it without saying it, but the balance just wasn't right, especially in the context of APG specifically. We've talked about it some over the last few weeks of like when we've seen him and Ibanez play together, like they kind of sometimes get in their way and Andre has to make more of a sacrifice. I want to bring this up because I think about watching last night, the League's Cup final, watching LAFC really do a good job of creating space and making life as easy as possible for their French striker that they just acquired, Olivier Giroud. Not having him like shift out and like work a ton, like getting him close to the box. Yes, they were frustrated throughout that game, and Columbus did a great job of like defending. But the chance that he got, off that set piece is the result of him being in the right spot at the right time and not being like put in the way of anybody or him getting in the way of somebody. Why can't we see that with our French striker? You know what I mean? Like, that's just, watching that last night was like, that's really frustrating. Like, we don't have to do that. Like, we don't have to do this double nine thing in order to fit Ibanez when really, like, APG is like still our star guy at 38 years old. Like, let's make life easy for him as best as we can.
And the goal reflects that. The quality of the goal reflects that. Alfred, I want to bring it back to when I was going over the lineup. I was watching Pello Maldonado today during his show with Juninho, and Juninho went in on Paunovic indirectly, as well as the board indirectly again with the selection of Joaquim. And Juninho mentions something that we've discussed in the recent pod episodes, and that's the possession. He's worried and alarmed that Tigres is losing that ability to possess the ball in games. And, I tend to agree. I think that obviously the stats are there to reflect that. Ultimately, I'm not necessarily saying that we have to dominate possession like we did and what established our championship runs the last, decade. But ultimately, I think that we're missing out on, being more selective on when to, possess the ball and then when to launch forward. But ultimately, Juninho was talking about Joaquim and, his ability. He complimented him so well as far as, how he is 1v1. And he had an excellent play against, was it Cade Cowell in the first half, where he just completely bodied him with like acceleration, speed, just physical ability to get in front of him without a foul. It was awesome to watch that. He was great in the air, like we've been, we mentioned in that NYFC game, obviously last night or the night before last night. And then ultimately, he also complimented that he could be someone that could be really good in our defensive style, especially with what Paunovic is trying to do as far as, pressing or pushing the line higher of defense, and having somebody athletically like Joaquim could be great. But one of the things he mentioned is that 80% of the games that he played in Brazil was as a right center back, right? And so Guido Pizarro plays in that position, and Guido Pizarro is comfortable in that position and has made the transition from defensive midfielder to center back. And he talks about the obvious evolution of play coming out of the back with Guido, Aquino, and Carioca. And now you don't have that because Joaquim is not that type of player. So now you're asking Guido Pizarro to play on his off foot to try to come out of the back clean, which he would normally do on the right side. So talk to me about what you saw in that selection there and moving forward, right? Because I know you brought it up in the past about with the new additions that, you were thinking we were going to bring in a left center back, if anything, to pair with Guido Pizarro. And ultimately, we did not.
Yes, I didn't listen to Pello and Juninho in their recording today, but they probably listened to me because I discussed that last week. We talked about how in the New York City FC game, Joaquim came in and Pizarro was pushed to the left. So it's clear and obvious that they know that he's stronger in the right center back position. Otherwise, they would have already tried him. At least in the last couple of weeks of training, they would have tried to put him in the left side. Maybe they did, and they realized, nope, Pizarro's more trustworthy. So, in the end, what's done, it's done. They already acquired him. They acquired the other young kid from Cruz Azul, right, who is also a right center back. And like I mentioned in the pod last week, I think maybe it's more thinking towards the future that maybe, down the line, Pizarro is the one that's going to be pushed out, and you needed to find somebody in that position. Maybe still in the next transfer window, they're going to look for somebody in the left center back position. Who knows? But for now, what I saw in the field on Saturday worked. I think he is, he's a talented guy, Joaquim. I think he's smart. He plays very smart. He anticipates very well. Whenever they're gonna cross the ball from one side to the other, he seems to always find a way to find the ball in the right position. So something funny, guys.
¿Por qué te ríes?
You
Oh,
don't
I'm
see
laughing.
no, you don't see this comment by Sean.
What did it say?
We're talking about these center backs, and he posts on, "Can we sell Dennis with Lewis as a package deal?"
Oh my god.
maybe
I didn't see
maybe
it.
maybe he thinks your production skills and your voice skills can be some worth more than Luis Quinones.
Probably.
Little sweetener in the deal. Hey, also speaking of Joaquin, afterburners. He's got some speed, man. His recovery
Yes.
speed really impressed me on Saturday.
In that play that you mentioned, Arnold, where he pushed Kate Cowell pretty much outwards. I mean, that's we talked about it in our group thread. That's what you expect out of a defender in a 1v1. You got to push the attacker out. You got to push him to the, you got to make sure that with your body you're making him play outwards, not inwards, which is what Angulo did in his mistake in the Piojo Alvarado goal. Is that he didn't attack him from that side. He let him cut inside, and that's why he was able to get that goal. But Joaquin, I mean, at least in what we've seen so far, his 1v1s, his aerial play, his interceptions and anticipation in the game. I mean, I have no complaints. If it's his passing not 100%, are we going to struggle, with playing out of the back? Sure, but maybe he'll pick up on that. Maybe noticing that everybody around him plays that way. You have Aquino that plays well on the ground. You have Carioca, Pizarro around him. Maybe it'll start he'll start to pick up some of those skills and abilities as well. So we'll see. Going back to your earlier question, regarding what happened in up front with the selection. I want to tone it down. I really don't think this is something to alarm ourselves of, as what as far as like being a huge mistake by Pauno. I think he's just still testing the waters, and with the double nine selection, he hadn't really played a lot with it, and we know that other coaches that we had in the past had tried it too. So it's a try and fail. I guess he needed to see for himself that it didn't work. And with the Cordova and Ociel selection, I put the issue more on who are the players that are being left in the bench. Why are they being left in the bench? Perhaps Cordova and Ociel are showing up more during the week. Perhaps they're giving Pauno more reasons to get that starting position nod. So, I mean, in the end, we gotta give Pauno the benefit of the doubt that he's trying, for the benefit of the team. He's trying to put the best man out there, and perhaps Brunetta, maybe Lainez, maybe Marcelo are not so convincing during the week or have not done things as well, and that's why they're being left in the bench.
Which is my next follow-up question for Double O Nation with Edgar, is why can't he secure a starting position in the lineup? Is it too much pressure? Just not favorable to Paunovic? What do you think, Edgar?
I think he's going through something that you've kind of seen happen to a couple other players. I think Rotterdam for a while as well. They just get too comfortable and they lose that intensity that brought them over to Tigres. So I think that's what's going on with Brunetta. I think, unfortunately, though, his status in the league is not enough to secure him that position in the starting lineup, especially when you have Nando and Carioca and Cordova who are ready and probably putting in more work during the week.
But he's worth 15 million.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part, man. Like, to me, obviously from the outside looking in, the obvious choice is you plug, at least from my perspective, you plug Brunetta in place of Ibanez, and I roll it with, because you're right. I think that Cordova is doing stuff throughout the week, and he's still able to produce without having to produce stats with build-up, and he's a player that gives you quite a bit, playing inside towards outside and outside towards inside. So I like him. Obviously, I favor him and I rate him high. I like Ociel's upside, and I talked about it at the end of the game. I think, to me, the physical aspect that Ociel provides is just, it's so different than what Marcelo and Ociel. To me, Marcelo and Ociel are guys that off the bench, I put it in NBA terms, 6-man roles. Like they're going to come in
Marcelo
and change.
Lainez.
Marcelo Lainez, pardon, sorry. Marcelo Lainez are going to be guys that come off the bench and change the direction of the game because they're speedy guys that they haven't been, banged up by the left back or the right back, going against, the opposition. And they could come in and with less minutes give you that quick burst of speed, that quick change of pace with a cross, with the shot. And then obviously we know Lainez can provide defensively and also track back when, you're obviously going after the score, to either tie or go ahead. Obviously gives you that space to cover if the other team wants to counter. So to me, those guys, and he's coming off of an injury. So I don't think he is quite there to be the starter at Tigres. And Marcelo, obviously, we've seen him. His role is much better off the bench than he is a starter. And that's something that obviously we want him to transition to be the starter for us at Tigres because we know that he has the potential. He's young. But ultimately, all these guys are young, right? The older ones are Cordova and Bruneta, which are above 25 years old, but the rest of them are below 25. So there's still a learning curve for them. But none of them are well-established players that you can say, that guy is it for Tigres. That's their star winger, And to me, I think that Ociel, Bruneta, Cordova, and Andre would be the obvious selection. But as a fan, obviously, I'm not watching, the trainings every day. And so obviously, like you mentioned, there's something going on that we can't see Bruneta completely take this role because he is the most talented attacking mid, at that position. And now we see that Paunovic favors Cordova by playing him out wide. So he obviously has the confidence to play him out of a more, traditional position that he's familiar with. So not sure if you guys have any more thoughts on that.
The only other thing I'll say is think about the other side. I wonder if he's managing his minutes more specifically now to save for the end of the season. I wonder if that is an element.
Who's this specifically?
To Bruneta. Is he saving him for the latter stage of the regular season to where he's peaking towards then and where he's at a super high level during the EF, for example? Because you got to think about that too. These guys are playing a lot of games. I know we don't have another competition to deal with right now, but you do have to think about that to some degree. So maybe he's saving him. I don't know if that's the reason, but I know that can be a reason, especially since it's still technically early in the season. But I also believe that he's not showing it on the training ground enough to justify him starting, like you guys have mentioned. So,
and Lou mentioned it. He's too
Chivas,
inconsistent.
But it's Chivas. I mean, it's at home. It's our first game back after the break for the Leagues Cup. I mean, you would expect that, this would be an important game for us, for him to bring him in. I mean, and it's not like, he's been slowly giving him minutes because he had the starting position against Miami. And, he had a great game against Miami. And then all of a sudden, he kind of got relegated. I don't know. It just feels weird. I mean, this would make sense if this was a Juarez or a Querétaro game, maybe a game in Toluca where it's really hot and, you don't want to get him tired or something like that. Same thing that you do with Guignac. But, I mean, you're at home. You're supposed to be the starting cam.
And, we talked about it last week. Chivas provides that open play, right? That ability that you can attack a Chivas team. But Chivas also came out to play. They pressured us high. They were all over the place. Alvarado turns into Neymar when he plays against us. In the final, he obviously went off and scored that goal.
Maybe that's why he's about to get signed by Flamengo, because they saw him play over the weekend. They were like, that's what we want to spend our money on.
Dude, I did see that rumor. That's crazy that they would pay for him. But it seems like a credible source. It comes from Gibran Arain. She doesn't really typically miss with the news he puts out because he doesn't typically put out a lot of breaking news. So that's a possibility there for him. But ultimately, he does have great games. That play that he did on Angulo was nasty. He put him on skates. And that's another thing that's, I wouldn't say worrisome, but it's something to look at, is that Angulo has now had several mistakes. And having someone like Osvaldo Rodriguez now on the bench to provide that competition is what I'm looking forward to. What is Sean? Random, did you guys see the picture of the squad at practice today? I can't take them seriously. I can't read the full comment. The Avengers. But yeah, game-wise, did you guys think that, is more faulted on Paunovic or on the players as well? How do we feel about the game? Because 1-1 tied at home, you talk about, the big aspect of the game, a popular team like Chivas. I talked about the style that they play. I feel like we missed out on a dub.
A little bit of both. Bonovic didn't set us up right, but also I didn't feel like some of the players played great. Like the attack was really inconsistent first half, and then Andre missing a penalty is just weird. Like, and it looked like he missed it on purpose because it was maybe not a penalty, but that was just tough.
It was
Obviously,
a weak shot.
It was super weak. Yeah,
he never shoots that weak.
He didn't look that confident either. Like I was surprised. So thankfully he redeemed himself second half with that beauty. But boy, that first half was not a fun watch.
No, and I think it was more 51% Paunovic, 49% the players. I mean, Andre looked a little bit off. It's hard to say, but his first 45 minutes, they were not great.
I mean, it just has to do with the fact that, these two strikers, both Nico and Andre Pierre, we've seen it before. They don't mesh well together on the field. I don't know. You gave us homework on, when was the last time that we saw, two strikers working together? I really don't even have to go that far back. I think with the other Nico Lopez, I think it worked because they were different characteristics. You had Gignac that was more, that in-box striker, and Nico Lopez was able to move around, behind the box. So, but that you don't get that out of Nico Ibanez. And sure, you can get that out of Gignac more towards the left side. He tends to, to go to that side, but it's really not ideal. I mean, they don't mesh together. I just don't see it.
And even
go ahead. No,
I was gonna say, and even like I can argue and debate with you that Diente Lopez is not a true number 9, because I would consider Diente Lopez more along the lines of Edu Vargas, Rafa Sobis,
Yeah, but they're not wingers. They're strikers.
They're forwards, right? They can play up top, but I'm talking about a 2-9, 2 box players that you can feed them the ball inside the box. And to me, we're at the stage that we're looking at Gignac. Obviously, he gets involved in more ways that he can with the buildup and the offense creation of it. But ultimately, he's now a more in-box 9. Nico Ibanez is an in-box 9, and I just can't. Obviously, Charlie Gonzalez and Gignac, 2 number 9s, didn't work.
My take on that is I struggle with that question that you sent, because in like the modern era of football, that's just not a system that you really play anymore, because you're just sacrificing versatility, right? So like, I love that you mentioned that Nico Lopez is not really like a traditional number 9. Like he has more characteristics of a 10 and more of like a center forward than he is like an actual like number 9. Like think about like guys who are like that across the world. Antoine Griezmann, he is not what you would consider a traditional number 9, but he is still a striker. He's still a center forward, and he gives you versatility. Chelsea, right now, Nico Jackson is their striker, and Joao Felix, who just rejoined them, is kind of more of a center forward. You don't have these two like pure strikers, like box strikers. That's just not how you play football anymore. You're asking to lose an element of versatility. You're asking to lose creativity and just like dynamism and like the ability to like switch things up, because you have two guys playing the same sort of way. Like the best teams in the world don't play that way anymore for a reason, because you need to have guys who can be super versatile in the games, especially on the front lines. So
and how many times they get in the way of each other. I mean, we had a discussion in the group thread. Somebody said, "Oh, Nico Ibanez got in the way of Gignac," And and Lou obviously defending Nico is like it was backwards. It was Guignac got in the way of Nico. Like, and you could argue either way, but it's gonna keep on happening if you keep on putting them together because they're used to playing the same way.
And that was my intention with the question, and that's why I said it wasn't Tigres specific. And you basically proved me right, Dennis. It's like, yeah, it's not modern football anymore. And you know what my example was? And because I came up with two examples, both examples. One was, stretching it because of what you just mentioned about the versatility and the different types and I consider more both of them center forwards, with Luis Suarez being more of the striker role, but Edison Cavani being, obviously a center forward. But even then, you can argue Luis Suarez can play the center forward, even though he's a striker. But that's just a rare occasion with the type of those two forwards there. I had to go back to Chelsea days, early days when they were spending some mad money with Andrei Shevchenko and Didier Drogba.
Oh, yeah.
How slow of a game were we playing back then to now that they were playing two elite number 9s? Not guys that were creating and like trying to get involved with the offensive creation of build-up and possession, because you had, Lampard, what's his name? Joe Cole.
Yeah,
Who else?
Did you have Argent Robin back then?
Robin. Yeah, you had these guys creating behind them. Maluda, right? The French guy. But ultimately, you don't have two number 9s, traditional 9s playing together. Go even bring it more to an example of America. Henry, wow. And Martin, why can't I say his name? Martin Henry and Julian Quiñones. Julian Quiñones was playing wide.
Yeah.
Julio Furch, Julian Quiñones, wide. We just don't see that anymore. And like, that's why I was like stressed about it. I was like, it's delusional to think after different coaches are willing to play these two guys together now.
I mean, one of the other prime examples of our team not having success in a double 9, the Club World Cup final. How well did that go?
Yeah.
Not. Also, okay, quick aside. Shout out Albert Matthews for popping in here. He's got a really interesting take here. I want us to talk about this. Talking about Lainez's performance, saying second best pay of the squad so far. He just gave us sacrificio, no asistencias, no goals. I'm tired of that dude. And then he also said this about the double 9 thing that we were just talking about. So thoughts on that Lainez point, because I think that's really interesting. I want to leave it up here for a few seconds.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I kind of overlooked it just because he's coming back off of injury, but he did have a pretty crappy game.
I agree.
I saw him flopping and kind of just like, I didn't look too much into it. We were playing bad in general, but I mean, it's true. He is not the player that we saw before the injury currently.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate. He wasn't in his position. I believe that he's better on the left wing. But Marcelo's also better on the left wing. It's the same thing that's happening with the center back position, where you go and get two right center backs instead of one of each, right? It seems like we keep on getting these left wingers, because Linus plays well on the left side, and Marcelo plays well on the left side. Cordova, who, if he's utilized as a winger, he plays very well on the left side as well. I mean, in the end, you have so many players, you have to move somebody to the right. So in this case, the person sacrifices Linus. He starts out on the right, but then eventually in the game they switch up. They switch sides. But I do believe that when we were getting the best out of Linus was in that stretch of last season where he was in command of that left wing.
I'm gonna first shout out to Albert. Saludos hasta Honduras, bro. Thanks for tuning in and listening to us. Great point there, because I want to, you played it very nicely for me, because I've been very nice the last couple episodes with Diego Lainez. And, I can go back to about a year ago where I was very critical of him, and I was willing to, turn my eye because of his defensive contributions. But this is why it annoys me. And, obviously it's a separate conversation because the guy hasn't given us anything anymore over the last probably 2 years. of Luis Quiñones and why I think that those assists that he has, and he is the leader of assists for our club. In the most successful run that our club has had, this guy leads assists. And while he did play with some great players, these guys are playing with some great players as well, meaning Marcelo, meaning Ociel, meaning Linus. And more specifically about Linus, a guy that, was a very, very good, debuted at America, went on to, Betis and, moved around to Braga, if I'm not mistaken, comes back, very young. But ultimately, like, I can't not agree with Albert's points because he doesn't provide the stats. Obviously, he's coming off an injury. He still has, obviously, some time to catch up and, provide. But none of these guys are standing out. And that's why I said on Saturday after the game, we overhype these players, meaning our youngsters, when they haven't really demonstrated the quality of play that needs to happen at Tigres. And we can argue the whole things with the coaching carousel between Diego Coca, Chima Ruiz, Siboldi, and now Paunovic. But none of them have secured their spot as a starter. And Luis Quiñones ultimately beat all those guys for that starting role. And that's why I feel like at times the criticism of Luis is unfair. Did he not give us anything the last 2 years? And at times almost seems like he's playing bad on purpose. And we saw it up close in this Leagues Cup, with terrible passing. Yes, absolutely. But those assists don't come on their own. And at one point, the man was, recognized as the best winger in the league. And none of these guys have been recognized as the best winger or come even close to that, at their positions. And so to me, I just want to, reemphasize his point that obviously I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because he's young and he ultimately is coming off an injury and he has improved a ton, especially defensively. Tactically, Siboldi talked about it on the pod that, you and I, discussed, Albert, with Ricardo La Volpe, and the ability that he gave and the wisdom that he provided to Siboldi, and Diego Lainez shouts him out on that as well and everything that he learned under Siboldi. But ultimately, these guys need to step up. These guys need to produce with 15, 20, 25 minutes because they have a guy like Gignac. They have a guy like Nico Ibanez. When's the last time we've seen good crosses for any of them? So I just want to leave it there with the point that you brought up.
Shout out real quick to everybody watching right now, and shout out everybody who's commented: Albert, Jacob, Sean, and our beloved David Molina himself.
Saludos al 956 King.
Nothing to say to that, Arnoldo. You pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, agreed.
I just want to make sure we remember, man, like Luis Quiñones has been terrible, but those assists don't just come on their own. And some of those assists were really critical as far as what they gave us on the field as far as championships.
But there's these cute defenders that really stretch their imagination, man. That one guy that said that behind Lucas Lobos, Luis Quiñones was the most skillful player we've ever had. Come on.
That's the same delusional fans that think Nico and Gignac should be starting on the same time.
There you go.
David's asking, do you think if Gignac starts on the, I'm going to say right, Nico mid, forward Sebas? Bro, I need you to put it together for me. I cannot figure that out.
We had a few already.
To respond to David, I'm all for the BCG in the starting lineup, and I think that'll get us further than a 9-9.
Yeah, Edgar's have to say Ozzy's a super sub to me, and Linus does play better in right wing, but the injury got him. So, he thinks the opposite of what you think, and obviously he thinks the opposite of what I think as far as Ozzy, coming off the bench. But those conversations, and I think Peter, brought it up at the end of the game on Saturday as well, is that the fact that none of us can agree either is a good indication that none of these guys have secured their positions. And that is not necessarily worrisome, but it definitely lets me know that these guys still have long ways to go in terms of development and also mental capacity, because neither of them are also true selections for the national team. Because we throw out the name Lainez like the guy's playing, in front of Uriel Antuna, which to some people, Uriel Antuna is garbage, but Uriel Antuna produces when he goes to play for the national team, and backs it up with his performances. Now, ultimately, he does have horrible performances, but he earns his call-ups. He won the championship or the scoring champ last season with Cruz Azul, or in a 3-way tie, if I remember correctly. So I think we need to tone it down with the hype that we have of our wingers.
Agree.
Answer this, because I can't remember the injury either.
Ankle injury. I don't recall if it was the left or the right. It was carrying on in Liguilla. He tried to do PT for it, and then with the national team, he got injured and ended up requiring surgery. So he's been out since before the Copa America.
And then he came back and he was overworked. I'm not sure what the correct term for that is when you have fatiga muscular. It's just just overwork, right? He came back too soon and he got muscle spasms. Jorge from Chi-Town. What up, guys? Agreed on the Quiñones take. I just think it was time for him to move on. Only problem is if he indeed goes to America, it's a rival directo, especially in Liguilla. Great prod as well. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I said, he wasn't very good the last 2 years. It's a good time to move him. And he's not fighting for any of the spots, and we're trying to get younger, so totally makes sense. Pulled muscle, ankle injury.
It's funny that he is closer to his solution, or like his situation having a solution, than Samir. That's very funny to me.
Goes back to what he has done at Liga MX.
He has a market. He still has market.
MLS, come on.
And I looked at his transfer market value, and obviously I'm not sure if that's totally correct, because I feel like that could get, definitely skewed in whatever guy's direction. It's $1 million. I'm not sure if that's what Tigres would sell him at. Yeah. If Luis goes to America, there's 2 players from Tigres at America that one play with each other and 2 have the same last name. Yeah. Yeah. That would not be good for us if another Tigres player goes there. But America hasn't looked very good, has had injuries, and I think they're tired.
What needs to happen is that Julián Quiñones needs to go tell his new team in Saudi Arabia, hey, I really want to play with my brother. And then we can get like $6 million off of him, because the Saudis have money.
There you go.
Tomorrow is going to be an important day for Tigres as far as the Luis Quiñones soap opera. We're going to know if he indeed is going to go to another Mexican team, because I believe tomorrow is the day that it closes. If not, then there's not many markets left open for him to sign. So the best bet is, to offload him here to another Liga MX team. But who knows? Who knows who's going to really ask for his services, and we'll see. But we definitely need to move on for him. Juninho was praising him high on the Pello Maldonado show today. He was just willing. It seems like everybody loves Luis Quiñones in the locker room, because everybody talks wonders about him. I'm sure the guy is he looks like a very amicable guy and funny guy, but he was talking wonders of him. And he's like, it's time to, if he wants to go, then he obviously, the club should give him every liberty to go and make it easy on him. So, and I tend to agree. I think that whatever you get out of him, whether that's $1 million or less, do it.
Edgar, to answer that question, Threedger, MLS transfer market's already closed. So that theory is actually, you can't do that. Also, here's another point from Albert. If you guys want to read that.
Marcelo is great, but he still can't carry the team. Whenever he's a starter, he doesn't look as good as when he plays as a sub. Quiñones pésimo nivel. Linus terrible performance so far. Cordova is not a wing for me, but he can play there occasionally. So I agree we need to tone it down or hype with those wings. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Shout out Jacob. Shout out Jacob, by the way. This is sure. I mean, I try to bring my best. I try to bring my best here. Shout out David as well here.
Any last impressions before we spent quite a bit of time, talking about different topics surrounding the game, but before we move on to Pumas versus Tigres.
Quick aside, the new Femenil jersey, breaking news, drops tomorrow.
Oh.
So that just came out on Twitter.
Is that the gray one, I think, that they're coming out with?
The green one.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't seen that.
With the half logo. They're doing just the U.
What?
Yeah.
That's their new logo, right?
Yeah, it's an alternate logo. I'm not a fan of it personally, but
I saw a while back that they were gonna have their own logo, so I assume that is.
Oh no, beats
That's
me.
odd.
I hope it's on trial and then it gets cut off.
That
Yeah.
that jacket, by the way, that we were talking about in the chat earlier, is on sale in Mexico.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to break it down for me on Fanatics, bro. That's where I got the white one that they released
Oh,
with Diego
same.
Coca.
yeah,
That was clean, but this blue one's whoo,
yeah. I just sent it.
fire.
I just sent it to my tia. I was like, birthday present, please, and thank you.
Yeah, I'm going this weekend. I'm going on Friday to the Tigre Tienda. So, yeah, Edgar's agreeing with us. That's the Femenil. So, yeah, okay. New logo for Tigres Femenil. Thank you, Edgar, for providing that in a comment. Thanks again, guys, for sending your thoughts, comments. Albert in Honduras, Edgar here in Houston, the other Edgar, not Double O Nation. Jorge in Chi-Town, Sean here in Houston, Jacob in
David.
Springfield, Illinois, and David in the 956. El Cup. Anyways, up next, what do we got, Double O Nation?
So up next, we'll be facing Pumas away at the other Universitario.
It's on Sunday, right?
Yeah, it'll be
Sunday
on
Sunday night,
Sunday,
Sunday night game.
6 p.m., I think, our time, Central,
Mhm.
Nice.
U.S. Central.
What do we expect out of this game? Pumas has been decent. They're flying under similar gameplay or style that Antonio Turco Mohamed plays with his assistant Gustavo Lerma being the coach. I mean, good coach, obviously. I think that they definitely have some pieces, and I think for the most part, Pumas, tends to be competitive, at least a quarter to halfway of the season, whether that's at the beginning part of the season or the back end of the season. But they always find a way to stay relevant, at least, like I mentioned, the first or second part. Alfred, what are we thinking? What is Paunovic going to learn taking on into this game? Expectations that you have.
Well, yeah, I think that's the key. That I hope that he has learned. We hope that he goes with one number 9. And if it would have been a 12 o'clock game like they usually are down in Mexico, I would have gone with Ibanez. It's a I think it's 5 o'clock in Mexico, 6 o'clock our time. It's I'm gonna go with Guignac, man. I mean, Ibanez has not looked good the last couple of games. I think since the Pachuca game was the last time that he really produced something. So I would go with Guignac, and hopefully this is where the key is. To me, the key is in seeing Bruneta come back playing good. If we find Bruneta in the starting lineup and he has a good game, if we see the BCG and maybe Ociel on the right, maybe Linus, whoever gets the nod. But I think the key is going to be that BCG. If we get that BCG, I think we could have a positive result. We could get the win, come back with the W.
Yeah. BCG meaning Bruneta, Cordova, and Gignac. Okay. Dennis, anything you would like to contribute for this match day number 6?
Can we play better than the last time we played at Pumas, which was last August on my birthday last year, and we played horrible that night. The only saving grace was Ociel's goal in like the dying minutes of the game.
Last minute, yeah.
I remember that being a largely frustrating night, and Nico was non-existent that game. So hoping for better results this time. This is the last Tapia game because this is the last game that Nahuel has to serve for his suspension. So hopefully we get
Is it
another.
his last game though?
I mean, like for now, you know what I mean? For now, but it's interesting because that now that he's playing so good and with Nahuel coming back, I think there's a case that you can like rotate them some. Anyway, not to get too ahead of myself, but he will play, and I'm excited to see him, play again just because I think he's phenomenal. His awareness is great. His anticipation has been really strong, and hopefully he can contribute to us, getting a win.
Full circle there, because I was going to bring it up when we were talking about the lineup earlier on in the pod when I messed up saying Nahuel. That was another thing that Peyo and Juninho, talked about today on their show, was that obviously it's Nahuel's last game serving his suspension. And what do you do moving forward? Like, you brought in a young guy who obviously you're going to potentially buy and activate the buy clause from the loan that you have on him. He's 23 years old. He is great, has great reflexes, is good in the air. He's a risk taker. He commands the box. The only thing that he can probably improve upon is his feet play, but we know that that's not really everybody's forte. That's, obviously some selective keepers that are able to do that strongly. Nahuel being one of them, being one of the best. But obviously, I know I want Nahuel in goal. But moving forward, what do we do with the guy that you want him to be ready to go? And they talked about playing him at the U23 games or U20, whatever games that we got going on. Obviously, Felipe is the odd man now. Tapia is the key. He's a selected backup for Nahuel once he returns, but it's going to be interesting, man. Yeah.
Question: If you put him in the U23 for the jornada, can he still be in the bench?
Yep.
Yeah, he can. Okay.
That was happening with, I believe,
Ortega.
Ortega quite a bit. Once or twice with Arturo Delgado. Not very often, but
yeah.
Ortega as well.
Ortega would play at the U20 and then he would be the backup because
God forbid, something happens to Nahuel. I want Tapia to come in.
Right. And that's what and that's what Juninho and Pello were mentioning. Okay. He was like, especially the home games that you play in Monterrey, where it doesn't have to do too much traveling. You let him play the U20 or U23. I don't even know what category it is, to be honest with you. And then move on to, be the backup that night for Nahuel. But nonetheless, I think it's a really good, ready to be controversial debate moving forward because Nahuel has to be on his toes. Nahuel, not that he wouldn't, but I think it definitely knowing that a guy is behind him that actually can play well. And he knows. I mean, I'm sure Nahuel recognizes that. He sees the raw talent that Tapia has. And he hasn't had someone that skillful be behind him and during his era at Tigres, that now he has to make sure that he doesn't have his, adventures of goalkeeping of Nahuel, like Sean says, or Nahueleadas, or, whatever you want to call them, that he's definitely his magic tricks, whatever you want him to do. And even just discipline to be, probably less, problematic with his discipline on the field, that he has to, again, be very self-aware that a guy like Tapia can take his job if he really wanted to.
Or he might have some more fun. He's like, if I lose a game, I know somebody good is going to come in and replace me.
The other thing too, great point here, by the way, by Edgar, the fact that Tapia himself states that he wants to learn from Nahuel. I think that's super cool. And also David said a second ago that he's always ready and that he loves him. So just want to show that comment again. But I think it's important to keep, even with Nahuel in the fray, I think it's important to keep Tapia somewhat consistently playing, especially actual league games, because there is the potential down the line. I'm not saying anytime soon, but down the line, I could see a path in where we could flip him and sell him to a big, team in Europe, for example, or just any European. Yeah, he's,
bro.
No, hold on. Let me get my point, because he's young enough to where you could get a lot of value out of him, and think he's about good. What's the keeper's name in Spain that's doing really well right now, who just played against Barcelona. Those two guys, they could be the future keepers of the national team, and that's a guy that you want to know if he wants that for his career. If he wants to go further along, then let's try to keep his value up to where if and when that time comes where we do decide to sell him, you get, a good chunk of money for that. Just from that business side. Obviously we want to keep him around as long as possible, but if he decides to, hey, I want to go challenge myself in Europe, then let's do what we can to set him up best for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just want to say you're such a nice guy, Dennis. You're looking at the wonderful possibilities of our board, who has done a tremendous job per se with the handling of
Hey,
signings and
that is implying that the board gets better and that we have new regime come in because these people are incompetent, as we all know. So
Oh, come on. Torrado came in and he's been in charge of all these signings, man.
I
yeah.
refuse to believe that.
I want him.
Everything. He's done
I want him
everything.
gone already. I legitimately want him gone already.
I
How much
saw
I don't
his.
like him.
I saw his. He got interviewed because he was doing the rounds of media, and he was on somebody's from RG's like TikTok or Instagram. I can't remember where I saw it, but they asked him his all-time 11 that he played with, and I looked at it. I'll send that video to you guys, and it was wild. I mean, the defense was good. He had Sergio Ramos. He had Jorge Campos at goal, Sergio Ramos, Rafa Marquez, Claudio Suarez, Ramon Ramirez as his left wing back, and then right wing back he had Dani Alves. So I'm assuming that Torrado played at Sevilla. I can't remember if he actually did. And then he had Pavel Pardo and Julio Batista, and then Julio Baptista, which I thought were the same player, but he had selected him twice. Could be wrong. And so yeah, it was honestly. I'll send that to you guys. I just was completely like shook by the players that he chose in the best 11 that he's played with. He had Chelito Delgado as his right wing, and then he had Jose La Perla Reyes from Atletico and Real Madrid playing left winger. I was like, that's
Let's not waste valuable pod real estate on Torrado, please.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I'm gonna skip your next point as well, Edgar. Thanks for the the amazing. If you guys could see this outline that Double O Nation created, it's incredible. But he has the transfer saga of Luis Quiñones, and I touched up on Luis Quiñones a little bit. And I don't know if we want to touch a lot on him, especially we've been talking about this an hour now. And again, like I said, tomorrow will be an important day for the Luis Quiñones saga. So stay tuned as we deliver the news, or Double A Nation delivers the news later
Our
on.
insider.
So what we got next after that, Double O Nation?
So you're right. Let's skip over the Luis Quiñones stuff. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But as you guys already have heard, he wants to leave. Good riddance. Moving on. I guess it's great to tune into Las Amazonas, who also had a pretty good week. A lot better than what we were seeing before.
Yeah, 4-0 victory. What a way to start the here we were having some doubts, me, myself, and everybody probably on this pod having doubts about what Las Amazonas could do in the Champions League or CONCACAF Women's Champions Cup. First time ever. And we talked about the setup, the format being 2 groups of 5. And, obviously we started this past Thursday playing home at El Volcán against our city rival and probably, the most competitive team after us in terms of championships. I know there's a couple of teams tied with 3, but ultimately they balled out, man. 4-0, guys. 4-0. What a way to kick off the newly Women's Champions Cup. Thoughts on the Clásico itself and beating your city rival 4-0?
It was a statement, man. It was a statement. Obviously, them being the returning champions from our league, and they're at top of the league right now at the standings, but only because they have, I think, 1 extra game or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was important. I mean, we needed that win in this CONCACAF Women's Champions Cup. We talked about it last week. The group, the teams that we're going to play, Gotham is not going to be easy. We're probably going to take the L, against Gotham. But we needed to win against Rayados, and we needed to also score a lot of goals because we also saw that who was it? Alajuelense.
Mm-hmm.
I think they put up 5 on the Jamaican team. So we scored 4. We're still up there, but we need to make sure that our goal differential, helps us secure that second spot, if not the first spot, if we get lucky, of the group.
Jenny Hermoso came back, started, scored a goal. Awesome. Great play by Jackie Ovalle. Great cross. Jenny Hermoso finishing off the play with a header. on the right side. Mari Carmen Reyes added the first goal, and then Tembi continues to show why she, again, arguably the best player of the season, and just scored, obviously, contributes offensively. And then we had Cristina Ferral with an assist from Greta Espinosa to set up the fourth goal of the night in that Clásico. 4-0 at home. Now, we move, right? And, it sets us up in a great way to continue to move forward in the Women's CONCACAF Cup.
Yeah, Ferran looked like the Valle. Like, what the heck? Like, the way she was moving out there, I was like, oh, that was cool. Oh, that wasn't a Valle? Like, that was my reaction to that live. No, great. You mentioned it, Alfred, a second ago. Goal difference is going to be a big deal, especially down the line. So to do that, and to do that against, our bitter rivals, a game that was one of the more difficult ones of these four, in theory, put them away like that so easily was awesome. So hopefully we take care of business in the same way against the Jamaican team, and then Alajuelense will be a tough game that will basically decide our fate. So hopefully we can prep well for that one specifically, but lots to like about what happened on Thursday, and kind of seeing the team really, blend well now that everybody's back.
Yeah, it was an overall impressive game. I think that we established from the get-go, we were just the dominant team, and we pressure them. We look dangerous at all times, and ultimately just starting off on the right foot. But to me, I was more impressed about the play. I think for once in a very long time, we didn't have nothing to criticize of Mila Martinez. Jenny Hermoso played in her natural position, closer to goal. She looked more involved. She looked like she was, obviously, in shape, in form, coming back from the Olympics. I thought that was going to probably be an issue, especially with like about a week that went in between her coming back and actually starting training. But she looked in form. So, again, more impressed besides the 4 goals, the good dominance that we had from the get-go, from the kickoff to the end. Tigres just looked like the better team. We had 9,000 people in the stands for this Clásico, which we talked about, people not attending these games. It was a good attendance for this Clásico, and, beating the rivals and, everything that means. The first international women's Clásico. Nothing more to say than, pure awesomeness.
I have a question because I need clarification. I thought that it was going to be home and away games, but I was looking at the calendar and no, right?
No, I was actually mistaken on that, and we gave out fake news a couple pods ago. It was not back and forth, so that my mistake. I probably picked the lead on that.
It's just 4 games to balance out, the fact that it's 5-team groups and only 2 move on. So it's just 2 home games, 2 away games, but not home and away against every team, because that would be a long group stage. We have to go to New York for sure.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember if we're going to Jamaica or if we're going to Alajuelense. Couldn't tell you.
I believe we're going to Jamaica.
Okay.
Or is this
Jamaica?
Frazier's?
Yeah. That sounds fun.
Yeah, interesting though that both Rayadas, I saw somebody pointed out, Rayadas and Tigres both have to go to Gotham, and not Gotham come to the heat of Monterrey.
Sounds like favoritism.
That's what happens with MLS, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, moving on to another game where maybe the dominant effect wasn't there play-wise, because ultimately a lot of rotations happened in this game. And this was the league game that they had against Santos Laguna. Santos being one of the worst teams in the Liga MX Femenil. But ultimately, we pulled off. We took care of business, and we came back from Santos with a 3-0 victory. And again, continued to rise in the standings. This time we had some goals by Fer Elizondo, who got the start at forward. Hadn't happened in such a long time. Probably been more than 2 years since Fer Elizondo got a start. And in true fashion, Fer Elizondo gets a header to put us up 1-0. And ultimately, again, moving on, just they took care of business. Jenny Hermoso scored a beautiful goal on a give and go with Mayor inside the box, opposite side, left foot, pure class, World Cup class on that goal. And then Alison Gonzalez, which that buildup that they had in that Alison Gonzalez goal was absolutely awesome. 3-0, guys. Thoughts on that game?
It was good. I was very glad to see Jenny Hermoso score in games back to back. That was great. And the alternative lineup, or not our strongest lineup, didn't hurt us too bad. I thought we would have struggled quite a bit more.
I think that we've talked about it, and I think we didn't really know what her role was going to be. But Jimena Lopez played that left center back position. I think that's her best spot. She looks more secured, in the back. Doesn't have to use her speed, along the sideline playing left back. So you had her playing left center back, and I thought she had a good game. Obviously the opponent wasn't up to par offensively, but she looked good. She played non-traditional defensive mids in Nayeli Rangel and Belen Cruz in the middle, with Alison Gonzalez playing out wide. And then, like I mentioned, Jenny Hermoso playing behind Fer Elizondo, and then Jocelyn Montoya playing on the right side, which she didn't have a good game this game. And, I think Albert's watching, and still, and one of the things that I saw on his timeline that he was, being critical of Montoya not being up to par. And I think that, I think he's correct. I think that Jocelyn did not have the best of games. And I think against opponents like that, you have to take advantage of the minutes. Mila Martinez came on and made some subs in the second half, brought on Mari Carmen Reyes. And, the team just looked a lot better with her and Anika Rodriguez, Greta Espinosa, and Mayor coming on the field to, give the team more balance and, more familiarity with what they were doing because of more game playing together.
My only complaint was the lack of true ways to watch the game. Like, it was frustrating trying to find it, and then luckily you saved us. I don't know though with the Twitter link, but golly, it was a stretch trying to catch any of it.
Yeah, that account, I have to go back and look at that account, but that account has actually it came across my timeline a few weeks ago, but they've shown quite a bit of our games, and the men's side and the women's side. For those watching, so they were on Caliente TV, which they're the main sponsor and probably one of the owners of that have the most stake in the league, and they're the owners of Querétaro and also Xolos de Tijuana. But Caliente TV doesn't really have an outlet in the States, so we weren't able to watch anything. And because they're away, they were not on Estrella TV, they were not on Fox Deportes. And so, as you guys know, we did have the men's not on VIX because, Santos is not a 2DN provider. So ultimately, we didn't have access. So that was a game that in a while we hadn't come across that issue to watch an Amazonas game. And for a while, I almost gave up on it. I was like, Sunday night, I was at home watching the Avengers movies. I started them again, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna really go out of my way to find a link.
And cooking.
Yeah, and cooking. I was cooking.
Let's give the proper shout out to the account. Is at Stadium MTYOF. So at Stadium MTY official, the Stadium Soccer Club account.
Albert, haha, some people got mad with me. Montoya and Allison haven't been good so far. I expected more of them. I couldn't agree more. I think Allison, we've talked about it here on the pod. Obviously, she scored in this game and, did her part. But ultimately, in the analysis of, what has been more games, she hasn't been up to par with what we know she has done, especially with the amount of goals that she scored in Liga MX. But like I mentioned, guys, and I want to bring up to this point also during the men's game, just so you guys know, also when you watch on Estrella TV, there was at times where there was the Fox Deportes camera, replay of their logo coming on, and that's because Fox Deportes and TV Azteca have partnerships, and TV Azteca has partnerships with
Estrella TV.
Estrella TV. And then Vicente Hernandez, our guy from Universal Signs of Humble, my man, chiming into the pod. He sponsored us. Guys, I really just have to show. He created these big stickers for us. Like I said, I'm going to find a way to get these guys to some people here in the city. He created this keychain for me with Tigres. He forgot the other one. It probably slipped out of the bag, but he created a custom one with the This is Tigres sticker that we couldn't find, and he engraved La U times on it. He got me this coaster, which is awesome for my drinks. So shout out to Vicente hooking it up with some stickers.
Hey, but only on the weekends, though, right?
Yeah.
Tus cheves para el fin de semana.
Oh, yeah. What else we got, Double O Nation?
All right, so up next, Las Amazonas decided that they were not ready to close their transfer window.
No, they were not.
And actually, about an hour before we started recording, the official statement from the club came out. Ana Diaz from Portland Thorns is the newest signing.
Portuguese, right?
Portuguese striker, I believe 26 years old.
National team player also, not just, someone that we're not familiar with. I saw a few of her videos and highlights, and it was just incredible. She's been at 4 clubs in Portugal, then went on to Russia. She was the leading scorer in Russia in 2023. So she has just been with the Portland Thorns, for this half of the season for us. So from January, till now, she had 13 games, which 4 she was a starter. And then she had a total of 382 minutes played in those games with 2 goals scored. So not a lot of goals in production, but again, leading scorer for the Russian Women's League at Zenit, and went on to play at Portland. And I spoke to Carrie Salas, who follows women's soccer, from all over the world and obviously here in the States, and is just very familiar with women's soccer. And, she told me that she was underutilized at Portland Thorns, and I believe it. That's why maybe Tigres made a move. Maybe she wasn't getting the right minutes. She wasn't fitting into the system. But ultimately, I think that favors us because we've talked about it on the pod, needing an explosive forward, and I think she's got it. She's got the athleticism. She's got that explosiveness up top. She's got some class. And on that highlight video that Tigres Femenil posted, that chip that she does, oof. I was like, there we go. We got some class and explosiveness up top. And Thembi and Jackie Ovalles, I think, are going to get tired of feeding her assists as we obviously, settle in and get her acclimated with her new teammates. And I think a team like Tigres Femenil doesn't really struggle with that, to make sure that the team feels like a family, get him acclimated to the team on the field. So I think we got a good player on our hands. Maybe not the star that we were looking for at an international level, that maybe played in the Olympics or played World Cup, but national team player.
The thing that strikes me about this signing is that looking at her situation from Portland, right? Like, you would expect that Portland would use her with what she has done before in, specifically in Russia, like you just mentioned. But that's a hard team to get into, right? Like Portland, I don't know who all knows about what the Thorns have on their roster or who they have on their roster, but they have Sophia Smith, right? It's pretty hard to knock Sophia Smith off her spot on that team. And they also have a certain Canadian player, Christine Sinclair, who just happens to be the highest goal scorer in international women's soccer history, if I remember correctly, or close to that. She is a proven goal scorer. So for us to take advantage of this, it sounds bad when I say that, but to take advantage of her lack of minutes and to plug her into our system to give us some more competition, to kind of help us out, especially with this CONCACAF run that we're on right now. Great move. Great move.
And it settles that thing that, we've been talking about. With now you have someone that can truly compete for that number 9 spot with Alison, with Mayor. And you don't have to do the traditional, if Alison, obviously Jenny was out due to the Olympics, so you were starting Alison and Mayor behind her. Alison would get pulled, Mayor would get, pushed forward, and then you would bring either a Nayeli Rangel, either slide in, In the last game, we saw Tembi playing behind the 9. Who else? Belen Cruz can also play in that role behind the 9. So I think now you let them go at it, right? You let either Mayor, Allison, or Ana Diaz be the starting forward, and then you play Jenny Hermoso, who we know is most likely going to be the starter. Also helps you with moving forward, depending on call-ups. Maybe Mayor hasn't really been called up to the national team, so she seems like the player that is being, stays behind. But Jenny Hermoso will lose to the national team. Maybe at times we'll lose Ana Diaz. So you ultimately add depth to a position that we know was needed, and we still have one foreign spot. Will we bring someone else in? Who knows? But I think that, to me, with the defense being reinforced, and now you bring in a forward, which we needed, you have a true starter in Tembi on the right wing with Jocelyn Montoya playing behind her. And then you have a starter on the left wing with multiple options like Jenny Hermoso, Belen, and Mayor playing behind the 9. The only thing that I would probably ask for is for another left winger. But, I feel like I'm getting too picky there.
Yeah. And I think just from the highlight video, because obviously, I did not know about this girl from before, but just from seeing from the highlight video, she looks like with her feet, she's very similar to prime Mayor, Mayor from a couple years ago. And she looks like she has the height of Alison Gonzalez. So we kind of get, the best of both worlds with her. So we'll see. Hopefully she results being the player we want her to be.
Albert stating, I love Mayor, but she's kind of slow now. Allison is not good. I think Ana will have it easy, but Mila never likes to play her new players soon. She will be benched for many games, most likely. Well, you sure are right about the last part with Mila Martinez, but we'll see. I mean, I'm excited for the signing. Like I said, I think it provides things that we were missing with the women's team, and ultimately, I think it's going to pay out for us. And like Dennis mentioned, we have both tournaments to play in. And, we could have had 3, but, we didn't do so well in the other one in the Summer Cup. But ultimately, I think it makes us better moving forward. What else we got? Double O Nation. We're coming out to the last part of the pod here to close it out. And like I said, I just want to say thank you, everybody watching, everybody who started watching from the get-go. This episode is sponsored and provided by Universal Signs of Humble, our guy Vicente Hernandez here in Houston, Texas. What we got, Double O Nation?
So right before we close out Las Amazonas, one more quick announcement that I forgot to write down. Tatiana Flores is headed to the World Cup with La Selección.
Is that the U20, U23 or something like that? Or
U20.
U20.
Okay.
She will be competing there and absent from our roster.
Congrats to her.
Has she been absent from the roster?
Technically, yes, but that's more a Mila Martinez thing.
Oh, just curious.
So nothing has changed.
Yeah. She it's gonna be tough for her to get minutes at Tigres, man.
It is absolutely. We have to loan her out, maybe.
I'm gonna reserve.
Well, you're mentioning, trying to bring a winger. Doesn't she play as a winger? So maybe she was supposed to be, but hasn't shown up.
I think she's more of a forward. She's athletic enough. She has really not played. She played like 15 minutes in a game, and she has flair. Like, you can tell she has flair. She's technically good. She's got some athletic ability, and obviously some speed. But I mean, it's just hard for me to say, hey, she could be a winger, forward. I don't know. I truly don't know, and I don't want to be unfair with criticism. I think she was a great signing to help with marketing, and helping the brand on the women's side. But I didn't think the women's side needed that much help with branding. I think it was just a good opportunity. It's a bet. It's a bet on the future that she can contribute. Maybe after Mayor, flares out, and possibility of Jackie Ovalles being sold, maybe she could develop into some wing play. I don't know, man. I really, like I said, I don't want to be unfair and criticize her when I really haven't seen her play. Okay. I would rather see what Albert is saying. I would rather see Dady. She's good.
Ramirez. Yes.
Coming back from ACL injury.
She should have played yesterday.
Yeah.
Would have been a
She's
good
a
opportunity.
she's a goal scoring machine. She's young too. So again, lots of options, but ultimately, like same thing that happened on the men's side. Like you have all these players ahead of you, and it's just tough to knock them out, especially when you're successful. I mean, can't knock out these players when you're losing games and not, bottom of the league or middle of the league. So you got to do a lot more in practice, and when you get the chances, you got to show out. Last part of the pod, guys.
From the vault, our
Man,
best Tigres moments, or just moments that we've come across.
From the vault, we didn't really have much the last couple of weeks from the vault moments, but we had some vault moments. 7 years ago, Rafael Carioca made his debut with Tigres in Apertura 2017, Jornada 7 versus Lobos Buap, a non-existent team now. And my God, guys, I got to go back into our thread because I watched when I came across that, and I was, sending you guys, when I came across, and I went and watched the highlights. Check out this team, guys. Nahuel Guzman, Hugo Ayala, and Francisco Mesa in the back, with Acosta playing left back, and Chaca Rodriguez, prime Chaca Rodriguez. Jesus Dueñas, Israel Jimenez playing defensive mid, and Javier Aquino. Wow. Javier Aquino, 4-3, and then up top, 3 monsters. Eduardo Vargas, Ener Valencia, and André Pierre Gignac. No manches.
3 strikers, bro.
3 killers.
We were talking about 2 strikers earlier. We had 3 strikers in that lineup.
Why have a double 9 when you can have a triple 9?
Bro, I watched the highlights. Of that game, like I said, after 7 years ago, coming across from the vault moment with Rafael Carioca. And, oh my God, Edu Vargas, man. Whew. That guy, Jesus Dueñas, was all over the field. I don't know if you guys got a chance, but Roman Guevara has the best highlights of Tigres games because they're, more than 10 minutes, and you can see good action and, see, obviously, good play from the team. I saw, it just stood out to me. In that game, like, obviously you don't see the subs in the highlights, but Jürgen Damm came in and had a good few moments there. Edu Vargas had a couple goals there, or 1 great goal. Jesus Dueña secured the victory with his 3rd goal of the night. Javier Aquino, wonderful goal coming in on the left side after Edu Vargas assisted him. Bro, and then Chuco Sosa came in the game as well, and I was like, oh my God. It just secures my argument, in my opinion, that 2017 roster has been the best roster that Tigres has ever had, and probably arguably in Liga MX history. And I will debate that with anybody with not so many stats, because I don't like stats that much, but with tactical analysis, I can break it down for you guys. But that was from our first vault moment. What else from the vault moment we got, Double O Nation?
Well, before you move, so Albert is saying cuando teníamos dinero. I don't know if the timelines match. It was when we sold Pizarro, no? So maybe we had that dinero from selling Pizarro. That, we were able to get Vargas, Ener.
No, we already had those. Ener came that year, but we already had. No manches. Okay, you're right. We did sell Pizarro.
We need to go back.
No,
I think Ener came in the spring.
Yeah, I think Vargas came first.
Yeah,
No. It was Valencia, bro. It was Valencia. It was for sure Valencia.
Because it wasn't until we got Valencia that we saw that one first game against, I think, Jaguares or something.
Puebla 4-0 hat trick.
Yeah, where he had the hat trick in his first game. But it was the first time that he played, and he was playing with Edu Vargas with Gignac.
And also, because I just remembered, Edu Vargas, when he first arrived, he wore number 26, and that was the championship against Chivas that we lost, and we signed Ener Valencia after losing the championship to Chivas. And Pizarro leaving, and then we brought in Rafael Carioca and Ener Valencia.
Right. Yeah.
You're right. He came in January. Yep.
So maybe Dennis is right. We need to sell someone to Europe, man, so we can have this money to get some of these players.
Brunetta.
but then we buy them right back, like we did with Pizarro.
For
You
less
know.
money.
For less money, exactly. All Pizarro did was score one goal in the Champions League, and then he was like, "All right, time to come back to Mexico."
Bro,
And
he
he-
had a great game against Busquets.
Busquets, he
Oh,
tore
dude.
Busquets up.
Pour him up, man. Gee whiz.
But we did have some money back then. We still have the money now, but we're just spending it on one player per season instead of like multiple. Paying 15,
Liverpool.
15 million to Brunetta, 12 for Nico Ibanez, and 11 for Fernando Gorreran.
Well, back then was also when, Miguel Angel Garza and Ingeniero Rodriguez, I mean, they had something going on because we had like 30 some up players like loaned out to different teams in Mexico and in South America. That's
Facts.
crazy, bro.
Shout out
Yeah.
Alberto Costa, bro.
Yeah, multiple positions, versatile. Another from the vault moment, guys. Luisao Quiñones scores a goal versus Necaxa 0-3 victory. I can't believe you put this from the vault moment with all the hype and hate that this man's getting. But I just wanted to leave the other one last because
Is that wait? So why did we? Is this his last goal? Like since a year ago? Why did we put
Probably.
this there?
It's the last one I remember.
that's wild. Yeah, but it's probably one of his last ones that he scored. I can't remember another goal he scored.
I mean, in the last 3 years, how many has he scored?
Yeah, not
He's
much.
got like one or two more recent ones, but this one was the
a
one
year-
that I remember.
Yeah,
So I
and
remember
got to
that.
remember, guys, if you have from the vault moments, things that
Share
happen within that, share them with us so we can talk about it, bring some memories back. We usually, anything that comes up during the week right before we record, we talk about. So I guess why Quiñones makes an appearance. August 20th, 2023, he scores a goal versus Necaxa.
Dios mío.
Last one I'm going to leave to you, Alfred.
August 21. Well, I put 2024, but it was actually 20 years ago, 2004. We had that Clásico 75 where we won 6-2 against the Rayados.
Who scored goals in that game, Alfred?
It was Guignac. I'm sorry, Guignac. Gaitan. My mistake. It was it's so many goals from Guignac, man. No, it was Gaitan. It was Silvera. I think Irene Suarez also scored.
Sounds right.
Didn't he? Yeah. And
Yep.
then there was like an autogol from Rayados, but we had like 2 Gaitan goals and 2 Silvera goals.
Yep.
And then Irene Suarez and then an autogol.
Yeah, that sounds correct. I can't remember the sixth one, but Cookie started off the game with the goal on a breakthrough play. It was nice. Gaitan and Irenio had a great connection to set each other up. That was awesome. And then Walter Gaitan came out and signed the front cover of the newspaper. And he said in the front cover of the newspaper, nobody takes this 6 goals away from you. And he signed it because if you're not familiar with the team, from the early 2000s, we had another game where
6-3.
6-3, we beat them at El Tecnológico. And it was an awesome game as well. And, they complained to the federation because we had a double contract with a guy named Osmar Donizete, he was a killer. La Pantera. And Diablo Núñez scored that game. Awesome goal. I will never forget that Diablo goal. And so this time around, Walter Gaitan was, basically saying nobody's going to take these 6 goals away from us.
Yeah, so that original 6-3 game, it got taken away on the desk, basically. So it happened, but statistically, it got erased from like Clásico histories as a non-existent game or whatever that we lost in the desk. And then this 6-2, obviously, it was for real this time, or at least, nobody could take it away. So that's why he signed a newspaper like that. And he also signed on there, my sons or my children.
Yeah.
Speaking about the Rayados.
Yeah. The things that Walter Gaitan did for us, guy. He just didn't give us the championship. God. I still hate it.
That team deserves so much more, man.
Yeah. Fellas, looks like we're done for tonight. Great episode. Thanks again, Edgar. Great outline, great talking points. And thank you guys for providing great content as far as y'all's takes and analysis over the last week that we had, or last few days of Tigres. Femenil and Tigres men's games. So shout out to you
Don't
guys.
tell that to me. My takes are bad. Tell that to those two.
Yeah, we all do our part of good and bad takes here, but thank you for everybody that commented and was
True.
participating tonight. It was wonderful, and we love that. We love because it just provides more content and it allows us to expand on our ideas and that's what we're here for, right? Like we all don't have the best takes. We are just a big passionate fan of our club, and ultimately we want the best for our team, even with our different takes and different analysis. Even if they're not the best according to
Shout out
each
to
individual.
Lou.
Yeah, we miss Lou. Second pod. He's got some stuff that he's handling. His schedule couldn't work out, so ultimately we would love to have him here, and we need somebody to stick up for Nico whenever we all attack him. So hopefully he doesn't hate us too much, because we did mention Nico quite a bit not being good. So we'll see, right? But we would love to have him back again, and hopefully soon. So shout out to you, Lou.
Predictions for Sunday before we go.
2-1.
I'm not as confident. 1-1.
No?
2-0. We get a clean sheet. Thanks, Tapia.
2-1. I'll be with you, Alfred. But I think the one we give up is like late.
Yeah, not as confident, but
What's this about? You know anything about this big sorpresa?
I don't. So
Okay.
I'm sure I'll hear about it. Again, Vicente, can't thank you enough. Universal Signs of Humble. I really appreciate what you do. And Albert just knows that Gignac is going to score against Pumas. He does really well against Pumas. So you can count on that 1-1 prediction on my end to be Gignac's goal. I'm with you, Albert. But we'll see, guys. We love that stadium, but we just have to make sure, we carry over the mistakes that we took from these past 2 games that we've had under Paunovic, and hopefully he learns himself and we come out, swinging for the fences and, apply that, that scheme and style that he wants to implement with the high pressure and provide some wing play and, plays through the middle and, just ball out.
Hopefully we'll see the away jerseys in action too, because we sometimes will wear blue when we play there. So,
all right. Well, thanks everybody. Again, thank you so much. We hope you enjoy the episode. Catch you next time.
Shout out Olipop. Bye-bye.